What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Nerdwide podcast, episode 99. Chris, we are 1 week away from our 100th episode. How you feeling about it?
Old.
Old. We've been doing this since when? I guess, was it 2019?
Yeah, I think so. I think we restarted in 2019.
Yeah.
That's not counting all the hero craving
Right.
episodes.
That's what I'm trying to think,
Oh,
because, add all those in, and we're maybe at 150,
200.
maybe 200. I need to go back and count them all. But yeah, we got some fun things planned for episode 100 coming your way. Might even look back at our first episode, what it looked like, and
Oh,
how we
Lord.
are now. I don't even think you're on camera for like the first
I'm not.
4 or 5 episodes.
I'm not.
Oh, man, it's gonna be fun. But quick, before we get into everything, because I really cannot wait to talk about The Last of Us this week. I'm your host, Tyler Haynes, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. Chris Rivers, right here. Quick housekeeping before we jump into it all. Next week is our 100th episode. We've had a lot of, I don't know, like monumental episodes here recently with the recap episode, the best of 2022 coming back in and everything. But here we are with another one with episode 100 next week. So make sure you are tuned in and subscribe to everything. If you enjoy the show, make sure you leave us a thumbs up on YouTube or give us a good rating for our podcasting app you use. If you don't enjoy what you see or hear, make sure you leave us a comment. Let us know how we can improve the show. Can't do better. If you don't, let us know what we can do better with. If you want to do more, you can always go to patreon.com/nerdwide. 3 different tiers for 3 different monetary values. I think the top is $3, and it's just a monthly subscription. If you do that, you get certain perks and things from us, as well as telling us what you want us to watch TV-wise, movie-wise, what you want us to play games, or if you want us to read books, comic books, anything like that. Those are the spots to do it. But Chris, how has your week been before we jump into this fun episode here?
Been pretty good. Light week at work.
Always fun times.
Yeah, I mean, we worked all of our hours, but it wasn't anything stressful or
Yeah.
anything. So, I came home a couple nights and just went to sleep earlier than I normally do. So,
Isn't that fun?
you know, yeah, yeah. But then at the same time, I feel like I'm not doing what I should.
I hate it. You go it's good to have the sleep, but then there's also that you're losing time of doing other things that you could be doing. It's been that way with me with games lately, but luckily, like there's not been any crazy games I want to play right now, and we're ramping up. I think, Harry Potter comes out in 2 weeks from our recording, and that's gonna be the next game that takes me away. And then the Destiny expansion at the end of that month. There's another game at the end of that month. So I'm just ramping up until the busy season, and then because Forspoken comes out this week, and I played the demo. Not gonna play yet. Reviews launched on Monday morning, so we'll see what the rest of the industry thinks of it. Because I did not have a good time, and from what I'm reading, neither did anybody else. So we will see.
Yeah, as far as that game goes, I think it was a lot of peers that did it like the first hour,
Yeah.
like the demo.
It,
It didn't appeal to me at all.
it's a pretty game.
Yeah,
That's about it. Like
yeah.
I played it and messed around with the controls. The controls did not feel good at all, and
It would
apparently like the writing's not even that good. I'm like, oh, so
it would be great as a screensaver just to have it kind of
yeah,
wander through that world, but it didn't look
yeah.
appealing as
That's
far
about
as
it.
yeah.
No, nothing crazy on my end this week. It's been a lot of working. I don't feel like I played a lot of games this week. I watched a lot of our TV and caught up on it, but I'm trying to think if we did anything crazy. I don't think so. We haven't been home a lot either. So, and then Fury's birthday is this Thursday, so we're gonna have to celebrate that. Already scoped out some puppy cakes and things like that. So
Put a Valium in there and calm me down.
calm him down a little bit. Hey, I just came up to the door just a minute ago. If video watchers, if you're watching me, you'll see me look to my left. I guess
Yeah.
still left over here, and that's me just watching for him because he'll go there and I can see his eye through the crack in the door. But Chris, have you been watching anything TV wise this week? Anything fun?
I got caught up on some of the network shows that I typically watch, like
No.
Blue Bloods and Young Sheldon and some stuff like that. But nothing.
That's how we were. Oh no, we caught up. We're catching up on Ghost, which is still a great show, which got renewed for season 3. Young Ronk, we're still catching up on. Below Deck, we still have a couple episodes, but we did watch an episode of that 90s show. And turns out Jamie did watch that 70s show religiously, every episode, everything. So we watched the first episode, and it was great. The guy that plays Eric is not, I don't know if he's acted in anything else since then.
Yeah, he
but
has.
he did not do the best of jobs. Everybody else was great, but he not so much.
Topher Grace is who you're talking about. He's on Home Economics,
I don't even know what that is.
which is it's a pretty successful show.
Oh.
On ABC, I think.
Well, he might have just had this, because this is the first one, and I don't think he's in anymore. But, like, it was not he didn't do that well. Like, he looked very uncomfortable and overacted sometimes. I was like, that's not.
Hope he's not one of our listeners, because we just lost him.
Yeah, we just lost him. But other than that, nothing. We watched the little 60-minute special on Harry, and that was it. So nothing crazy. But what we did watch, and I'm going to go full-on spoilers for our shows, which is going to be The Last of Us this week and National Treasure: Edge of History. I was right. Go put it on record. The man in the cell, I know future spoilers here for our episode we're about to recap, was her dad. We thought he was dead the entire time. No. He was the Salazar that was in there, which lets me believe that Salazar is the guy that's been trailing them. Because he's obviously not working with Billy, so I think he's that Salazar.
Maybe.
The long-haired guy that attacked her in the library and everything.
He was there again.
Yeah.
She went.
So that's what I'm thinking. That's Salazar. Because there's still he's still the missing piece of this whole puzzle now.
But we'll get to it.
We'll get there. We are going to thelaughingplace.com by Bill Galsella again for our recap. Let's see. Agent Ross plays the audio file that she was given, which supposedly proves that Jess poisoned Peter Sadusky for a clue in the treasure hunt. Agent Hendricks is very happy with Ross's work and wants her to arrest Jess, but Ross still has her doubts about the story. Jess is making her escape from Billy with the help of Tasha and Oren, and plans to cross the border into Mexico to continue the hunt alone. Tasha is trying to convince her to stop because if Jess leaves the country, she won't be able to return. Knowing Salazar is the only person who could tell her exactly where the next relic is, Jess plans to make an alliance with Salazar in hopes of stopping Billy. Despite her protest, Tasha and Oren join her on the trip to Mexico. The group soon finds out that Jess is wanted for Sadusky's murder. Ethan arrives at the apartment to find Jess, Tasha, and Oren scrambling to pack. Oren is frantically looking through his shoeboxes because to Tasha's surprise, he has a fair amount of money stored away should Jess ever need to escape from the authorities. What a good friend. Because, like, this is not even before, this was all before the treasure hunt and everything. He had this just in case. And I'm like, dude, selling his shoes that he, obviously a big sneakerhead, and just to keep money for Jess to escape, which good for him. Like, he's probably my favorite character on this whole show. And I've had a lot of fun with him. Jess learns from Ethan that Liam was framed by Billy and that he's in the hospital having been beaten up by Casey at the period there. At the courthouse, Billy learns from a fellow reenactor about the original Alamo being a hometown in Mexico. Too easy. Way too easy, by the way. I don't, that they had to do that, but I was like, too easy.
Way too easy.
The group is leaving with Ethan staying behind. He makes a promise to Jess that he'll look out for Liam, and he encourages her to find the treasure. Ethan vows to lawyer up and clear her name. Agent Ross is searching through Jess's items when Ethan comes in to try and clear her name. Ross plays the audio of Jess and Sadusky's argument, but Ethan quickly proves to Ross that the tape is a fake. Ross's skepticism about Ethan's claim, which is I would be too if I was FBI agent, because he goes, she used further, and Jess got perfect scores in English and everything, and been farther. The only one that used further is people from England. And I was like, yeah, but that's, that's not going to hold up in court. But, which is what she pretty much says. Liam arrives home to see the clue room in shambles. Casey gets Billy free from jail before they can do much. Agent Ross approaches him outside the jail. Billy is less than helpful to Ross. Jess, Tasha, and Oren cross into Mexico. Back in Baton Rouge, Liam tries to call Jess, but has no luck. He learns that his singing act in Graceland has acquired him quite a fan base, and his manager at work offers him money to play one song which Liam desperately needs. His new song, of course, is written about Jess. And Mexico, that was beautiful.
Cash.
Yeah, just cash, just for one song. I don't need you to do anything. I just need you to do one song. Shoot. Jess, Tasha, and Oren cross into Mexico. Back in Baton Rouge, Liam tries. Oh, we already said that. In Mexico, Jess, Oren, and Tasha are killing time until prison visit hours begin. Liam plays to a packed house, and the audience is his grandfather's nurse. Chasing after the nurse, Liam learns that the nurse actually saved him from pulling him out of the river. Confused, Liam wonders why he saved him. The nurse confirms that Peter was murdered and that Billy has gone too far. Before storming off, the nurse gives Liam back his phone. In Mexico, Ethan joins the group. He tells them about Billy's fake audio recording. Back at the FBI, Ross is laying out her suspicions about Billy Pierce, and this is about the treasure hunt. As she describes her suspicions, Hendricks tells her that Jess is guilty, and if Ross wants her to get her career back on track, she needs to arrest Jess, which is a complete 180 from 3 or 4 episodes ago when he said, he was the one that got the tip about the Declaration of Independence and didn't do it and said, forget about it. But it's like history's almost repeating itself, and he's like saying, forget it, don't worry about that. So whatever. I mean, like 2. All right, sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. We are back and we are recording. My internet just randomly turned off for no reason, but came right back on. So don't know what that was about. But as we were talking about, I'm going to back up just a little bit here to catch Chris back up. I'm not sure where it happened in the recording. But yes, I don't understand why what's his name? I've got it here. The FBI agent kind of just does a complete 180 with Ross, and just it has Ross here. Anyways, with Ross, but 2 episodes ago he was like, I trust you, follow your gut, you've got this. But now it's just, no, you've got your girl, don't, whatever. Which is scary. This says everything about our society we live in with deep fakes and everything like that you can do now. How do you know what's truth and what's not? So, but let's see. Listening to the tape, Jess is inspired to use the threat of Billy to coax Salazar into helping her. Though they know nothing about Salazar, Jess goes in to meet the mysterious criminal. Initially brushed off by the guard, Jess admits that Salazar killed her father, and she wants to try and get some answers about what happened. Called from his cell, Salazar goes to meet Jess. To her shock, Salazar reveals himself to be Jess's father, Rafael Rios. Nailed it back in like episode 2, I think, or 3. It turns out he escaped Salazar when he was on the treasure hunt, and he was arrested for breaking into the bank in Alamo, Mexico. Rafael claimed to be Salazar to keep Jess and her mother safe. He proves that he is her father by singing a little bit of a refrain from Jess's lullaby, which is beautiful. But Rafael's a little crazy, though, which I would be too if after 20 years I found out everything he just found out. So
yeah. Absolutely.
Rafael is saddened to learn that his wife, Manuela, died last year. Jess confronts him about his absence, and while Rafael describes the importance of the treasure and nothing else, Jess tells him that her mother never mentioned the treasure and that nothing is more important than family. Because he went like all in on the treasure right at the bit. He says, now that you're here, he says, I know why you're here. And he said, you've got to get this treasure. It's our duty to protect it. And didn't really care anything else about the family or anything, which I kind of get, because this is a, several century old treasure and thing that this family and these people have been tasked to guard and keep safe. And he's just another part of the plumed serpent. So, I mean, I get it. I completely understand. But it's also like, dude, come on. This is your daughter you haven't seen since she was a baby. I mean, come on, have a little bit of sympathy here.
His wife died, and he brushes it aside.
Yeah, he's like, yeah. Okay, and
yeah.
Raphael informs her that there was no clue in the bank and provides a cryptic clue as to where he thinks the relic is. Outside of prison, Jess tells a group of what she learned that she did exactly what her mother didn't want her to do. Wanting to give up, Jess is encouraged by Ethan to continue the hunt, telling her that she has a sense of purpose. Ethan tells Jess that she is born to find this treasure. Using the clue provided by Raphael, the group searches for where to go next. Back in Baton Rouge, Liam finally hears the messages left by Jess and tries to call her back, only to keep getting her voicemail. The group finds a convent that traces back to a very important nun in Mexico City. Orange states that a convent wouldn't be a perfect place to hide a treasure. Inside the convent, the group follows a tour looking for the clue. An organ on display would be the perfect location to hide it. Approaching the organ, Jess believes a specific song must be played. S thinks that Jess's mom's lullaby is the piece of music that is the key to the organ, which is awesome. Again, I've said it every week. I love how they can just put these little small things in and tie it all back in. They attract the attention of the nuns, but before they're interrupted, a secret compartment in the organ is revealed and Jess finds the last relic. Carrying the relic out, Jess is confronted by the nun who wonders what she has. When Jess tells her the truth, the nun lets them go because she has been waiting for someone like her for a very long time. The burden of protecting the treasure is now on Jess. Beautiful. Absolutely loved that scene. And I knew that's what it was as soon as she approached Orem and did not, didn't take any of his crap and walked straight in. I was like, oh, she knows about the relic. With all the relics open, the treasure map is now complete, and the group is trying to figure out the final location of the treasure. Unable to read the map, Ethan suggests to seek out her father. Back in Baton Rouge, Liam seeks help from his grandfather's nurse. And back at the prison, Jess heads in to visit her father once more. Raphael isn't greeted by his daughter, though, but rather Billy, who is shocked to see him alive. Jess wants to leave, but she plans to do something to help save her father and breaking her out of prison.
Yeah. So, a really good episode. Really moved the story. What do we got? 3 left?
Yep.
I still think we get Nick Cage at some point.
We have to. And so these next 3 episodes have to have Riley in them as well, per IMDb. Yeah. IMDb has been wrong. So, we, who knows, but...
I think he helps get her back in the country.
Yes.
And contacts with the FBI, where he'll come into play as well. And I think ultimately she gets hired by Ben.
And then, boom, National Treasure 3 sets up, and we've got our 2 main protagonists now.
Yeah.
And a whole slew of a cast to have fun with.
I kind of got concerned a couple of times because it looked like they were going to try and pair Jess and Ethan.
Mm-hmm.
The way they had them looking at each other and everything.
They've been doing that the whole series long.
No, don't go down this road. Write that character off. It's just, I don't know what it is. That's
still not an Ethan fan, huh?
It seems pointless to me. Like he's the only one that's been pushing back,
right,
most of the time against her doing this, and now that he sees, oh yeah, she was right. Now he wants to be supportive.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, just off with him.
They even talked about the dance and everything. I think that was the last episode. It might have been the beginning of this one, too. They're like, it wasn't anything. It's just a dance. It's nothing crazy.
If some member of the team has to be sacrificed for the rest of them to get away,
Ethan should be it. Oren and Tasha, love them. Liam and Jess, obviously, they're close and everything, so Ethan's got to go.
Yeah. He's the 5th wheel.
All right. But I'm excited to see where we go from here. How does Liam join back up with them? Obviously, he's getting money, so I don't know if he knows he knows she's in Mexico now. But I wonder if he's going to keep the FBI at bay, or how does he come back into the picture? Because I think they're going to stay in Mexico, at least in South America, until they find where the treasure is, because it's down in this area somewhere. So I'm curious to see where we go from here. But I'm really excited because this show is really good, and I really look forward to watching it every week. So... but it's time. Something we've been talking about for a while. And the first episode is finally here. And let me tell you, perfect first episode. Of course, we are going to do full-on spoilers for The Last of Us. We're obviously going to talk about the game as well, to certain things. Don't know about future... Well, we'll get to future... I don't know about future spoilers yet. About what happens in the game and things like that. I'll talk about some of the discrepancies that happen, but we'll get there. But we go to tvline.com for The Last of Us first episode. This is by Kimberly Roots, who she has done, I don't know if it's Santa Clauses or one of our other shows we watch. I think TV Line's the one we do for Superman and Lois.
Might be, yeah.
So I think Kimberly's one of them. I have to go back and look through. But... let's see, I want to see where to start. Here we go. The series opens with footage from a 1968 talk show. 2 epidemiologists discuss the possibility of a global pandemic. One worries about a virus's spread, but the other says fungi are the real danger. Quote, there are some fungi that seek not to kill, but to control. He says, pointing to examples of fungi that can affect insects, which was crazy because they talked about the whole... the zombie ants that people have shown, things like that, because everyone's like, oh, this could really happen to us and stuff like that, which is a great segue onto this for the show. The first epidemiologist scoffed that that's not possible in humans, but the second says it wouldn't take much. The world getting a little warmer, for instance, for norms to change, which obviously is a thing into global warming, which is very much a true thing. He mentions cordyceps as one of the fungi capable of evolving and burrowing into our brains and taking control of billions of people. The worst part, there'd be no treatments, no preventative measures, and no cures. And then it ends, and I'm like, oh, it's awesome. Then it goes, in short, if that hypothetical fungal takeover happens, we lose. That's it. We lose. And then it fades to black. And I was like, this is an excellent way to start this show, setting it up to what this is. It's not a zombie virus, it's a fungal infection, which is what the whole the game tries to prove and things like that. But, oh man, and here we go. We cut to 2003 as a teenage girl wakes up at home in Austin, Texas, then awakes her dad and makes him breakfast for his 36th birthday. The girl is Sarah, played by Dumbo's Nico Parker. Her dad is Joel. Of course, you'll know him from The Mandalorian's Pedro Pascal. And they're pretty much all each other has. Plus, the Uncle Tommy comes in, of course, which we know from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Gabriel Luna, Joel's brother who swings by that morning. Sarah laments that her dad is going to work a double construction shift on his birthday, and in the background, a radio report hints that there's some sort of trouble brewing in Jakarta. What I love about this show, and that they do so well, because in the video game, you start off, and I'll let you know where we start off when we talk about it in the recap, but in video games, you're able to walk around the whole house, figure out what the world is like, what's going on, but you get this world building and stuff in the background. And you have to listen. I watch the subtitles and everything, so of course it's playing underneath everyone's talking. But you can hear like troubles brewing, riots in Jakarta and everything. And obviously you're like, oh, so that must be where this infection started to spread. And like they did this several times, and we'll talk about it. Before Sarah leaves for school, she nips into Joel's room and grabs his watch and some cash. It's September 26th. We learn via an on-screen graphic later. Sarah takes the bus to a clock shop after school to have the watch fixed. The dread starts to build as you see police cars, fire trucks, and SWAT vehicles start going back behind in the window. Then a worried-looking woman comes out of the back of the shop, announces they're closed now, and rushes Sarah out, advising her to go straight home. Again, this world building, and we're seeing it through 12-year-old Sarah's eyes, which is beautiful. Sarah winds up at her neighbor's house doing homework and making cookies while hanging out with Mr. and Mrs. Adler and their elderly dementia-suffering relative. Everything seems normal until Sarah has her back turned while picking out a DVD. The old lady starts to convulse in a very horror movie type of way. But by the time an oblivious Sarah turns back from the shelf, the woman appears normal again. As Sarah says goodbye and heads home, a fighter jet flies low overhead, and you can hear, it's very audible, you can hear a jet flying overhead. Listen, so I'm watching this with Jamie for the first time. Of course, I know what happens in the video games, and did not know how faithful the show is going to be. For what we're getting right now, this is beautiful. Like, I love the backstory with Sarah, which we knew originally they were going to do that, but we didn't know to what extent. Of course, we find out by this episode, but Jamie said, "Are you sure you can watch this?" She goes, "Did you even play this game?" Because of the grandmother, the elderly lady in the background. Like, she did the whole arms start crossing, and her mouth gets big and black, and like she starts, doing that whole clicker thing that the enemies of this game do. And I was like, that was horrifying. I said, but we haven't seen anything yet, because there's gonna be some clicker scenes that's gonna be terrifying.
If you want to give me the creeps, it's either older people like that or little kids.
Yes,
that are doing.
They did an excellent job. And the next scene we see of this elderly lady, even more horrifying and terrifying. But man, it was good. That night, Sarah gives her dad the repaired watch. He teases her that she gifted him something he already owned, and she used his money to fix it. She says, "It's a thought that counts, and you are never going to do it yourself." And despite the ribbing, you tell he's very touched by this sentiment. They settle in to watch the DVD she borrowed from the neighbors, but she falls asleep. When Tommy calls from jail, needing to be bailed out after a bar brawl, Joel carries his daughter to bed and kisses her head before leaving to help his brother. All right, so this next part is where the game starts off. It has begun. Sarah wakes a little after 2 a.m. and hears helicopters passing outside. In a quick succession, she realizes Joel isn't there, turns on the TV to find the National Alert System broadcasting on every channel, and goes out into the front yard to see what the Adler's dog is barking at. She returns the pooch to its home, but it won't go inside, and when Sarah enters the open door after hearing breaking glass, she nearly slips in the blood that's pooled on the floor. So in the game, the dog jumps up and it's a jump scare on the screen door. But you can hear the Adlers in the background. I don't know if you can ever see them. I don't remember if I actually looked outside or anything in the game, but you can hear the Adlers arguing. Well, let me get to this next sentence. I'll kind of explain that. Mr. Adler is near the back door, hurt, grabbing his neck. Shocked, Sarah walks toward him, and that's when she sees the old woman feeding on Mrs. Adler. Terrible tube-like sucker thingies protruding from the elderly woman's mouth. She comes after Sarah, who flees. Thank goodness, Joel and Tommy drive up just then. Tommy shoots the woman, but she gets up a moment later, and Joel is able to incapacitate her by braining her with a wrench. So in the game, the dog jumps up, and you can hear the neighbors out back arguing as you're walking around the house, discovering the world. And it's more of the husband going, "Oh no, I forget her name." He said, "I don't want to do this. Please, no. No." And he screams and you hear a gunshot go off. Clearly she is infected and tries to bite him and all this other stuff. So I like this way better because you get more of a glimpse of Sarah and more world building for her. Whereas in the game, she's only in 15 minutes and you don't really get much of Sarah. But you see how she is in this movie, though, the show.
They do a really good job here of making you care about her. They give her enough time for that. I will say this: I had a flashback to another film that had not a scene exactly like this, but when the grandmother, when I'm assuming it's grandma, or, the old lady, when she stands up and she kind of has that cracking.
It's horrifying, man.
I'm assuming which is muscle and tendon, not bone.
Yeah.
But it gave me a flashback, and I think you've seen this, to the film Legion.
Mm-hmm.
Where you have that diner scene, and the older lady spider crawls up.
Oh, it's horrifying, and I think we're gonna get more of that in this show too, which terrifies me because we pretty much got that after Joel, Tommy shoots her, and she kind of crawls up a little bit, and then stands back up. I was like, dude, the clickers. I'm pretty sure we're getting clickers tonight, because at the end scene when it pans out of the city, I don't know if you've seen this yet, where it pans out of the city. There's several buildings, and you got skyscrapers right here. One of the buildings in the lightning flash, there's a clicker that walks out and does the whole little contorting thing, and you don't notice it unless you are looking for it. And I was like, this show is really awesome. We'll get there though. As a relieved Joel hugs Sarah, tells her, "We're going to be brave. It's confirmed. Something very bad is happening all around them." They hop in the truck with Tommy and try to get out of the city where the bulk of the badness seems to be taking place. Fans of the game will notice that despite some obvious changes, there are certain sequences that pay loving homage to the original. The frantic ride here is one of them. And this is what I was freaking out because we've been talking about this. How good of a game adaptation is this going to be? And this is one of the scenes that's shot for shot. Even the road signs, when she's looking out at the burning barn and the house and everything burning down to the cars and everything, it's perfect. There was a whole 5 minutes here that is the exact same thing as the game. And it is such a good job with it. Tommy mows down people in his way. Joel makes the call that they're not going to stop and to help a family that needs a ride. The road out of town is completely blocked by traffic, and eventually Joel and co. run into a military blockade. Joel quickly improvises a plan to get around it and go to Mexico, but maybe it's everywhere, Sarah says quietly. We don't have long to contemplate that horrible prospect before a honking huge major carrier. What would you like from the beverage cart jet crash lands on the road behind them. Pieces of the wreckage shooting into the truck, and everything goes black again. Beautiful. In the game, So the show, while they're driving down the road and you think they're going to get T-boned, and when that truck stops, that truck actually hits the vehicle in the game, and that's when it goes to black. They did that. They paid homage to it, and then made an airplane, fall down right behind them, which is even more terrifying. And I completely agree with why they did that. So I thought it was really cool, really well done. Uh, when Sarah comes to, she looks out the window and sees one of the infected eating someone else like it's closing time at Golden Corral. Joel gets her out of the vehicle, but her ankle is messed up and she's not able to walk. As she's trying to form a new plan, a police car crashes into their truck and suddenly there's fire everywhere. Tommy is okay, but he's stuck on the other side of the wreck. He shouts that he'll meet them at the river. Joel scoots up Sarah, tells her to keep his eyes on him and nothing else, and they take off. They pass an alley full of infected, creating more infected. When Joel pauses too long to look on in horror, a very fast infected man follows him. The chase ends when a soldier takes down the infected with a bullet. Joel shouts to the soldier that he and Sarah aren't sick, but the soldier ignores him as he radios into command and receives orders, which obviously is the order to kill them on sight. Joel is still shouting that they're not sick when the soldier fires on them. Joel and Sarah hit the ground, and the soldier follows a minute later when Tommy kills the man just as he's about to shoot Joel. Really bad news, though. Sarah took a bullet in the stomach. Joel tries to pick her up, calling her baby and murmuring it's going to be okay, but it obviously is not, and she dies. Joel hugs his body to him and cries. Side note, this is heartbreaking. How do I care this much about these people so quickly? And it fades to black again.
He tries to pick her up, and the movement just causes her intense pain.
Which it would, and
and he can't do anything.
So Jamie didn't know this, which obviously, if you didn't play the game, this is the iconic what drew people into the game. Because this is the first 15 minutes, but in the show, this was like I think 30 minutes in, 40 minutes in. But I knew it was coming up. This is when I thought the episode was going to end. Was this part, and it didn't, and we kept going. I was like, oh Lord, we're doing this. But man, even knowing that it was going to happen, it was still rough seeing Parker and Pedro Pascal act this scene out. Absolutely beautiful and very well done.
Yeah, it's one of those things, right? Like, they did such a good job, as she references in her recap, of making you care about the characters that quickly.
Well, and it's like you didn't know it was going to happen either.
Yeah.
And
it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal writing. And like you alluded to with the jet, swerving the people that were looking for it to be a shot for shot, maybe of the game, and saying, no, we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to have some stuff to surprise you.
And I am all in.
So, yeah.
And it's one of those things because they set in the game as well. They set Sarah up to be the main character because that's who you play as, and in the show, that's who you're focusing on the majority of it. But no, Joel is the main character of this. And man, they did such a good job. Now, this is another spot where it deviates from the game. They do 20 years after Outbreak Day. In the game, it's 10 years, so 2013. I think the game came out in 2011 or 2012. So this is another spot where it deviates, which it could cause issues later down the road when they reference music and stuff like that hasn't been invented yet or done. So we're going to see how that works. But so far, they know what they're doing. The action then jumps to Boston about 20 years after Outbreak Day. The city is in ruins, heavily guarded walls encircle a quarantine zone, aka the area where survivors are living, and the military Federal Disaster Response Agency, or FEDRA, is in charge. There's a strict curfew here. The buildings within the QZ are in ruins. Ration cards are currency. Unauthorized entry or exit from the QZ is punishable by public hanging. From signs on the walls, we can see that the cordyceps infection symptoms are coughing, slurred speech, muscle spasms, and mood change. How long it takes to be fully infected depends on where on the body you've been bitten. Leg or foot, you got up to a day to put your affairs in order. Neck, head, or face, 15 minutes tops. Those who are bitten are killed, their bodies are burned, and when we see this practice in action, we realize that one of the people carrying out the cremation is Joel. Sarah's dad, who is looking grayer, grimmer, and more beat down than ever when we last saw him, apparently also does some business on the QZ's black market. As he trades a Fedra soldier some pills for a stack of ration cards, the soldier warns him to stay off the streets for a couple of days, because a resistant group known as the Fireflies have been blowing things up and everyone's on edge. Later we see the Firefly graffiti on the walls. When you're in darkness, look for the light, which is a very big thing in the game. Before we move on here, I love this, the world building we get in the first little bit. We see another adolescent teenager walking outside the QZ comes in. The Fedra, I'm assuming doctor or nurse, is sitting there talking to him. Obviously, they scan his head. We get the little scanners for the first time. And you can see in the background, again, pay attention to the background when you're watching the show because it tells a story on its own. And we see it's red, but they don't pay attention to that because we're still focusing on the kid and the doctor. And you can see the doctor look out and see it and then look back to the kid. She's like, hey, what's your favorite food? And she gives him a little injection. She goes, this is just to keep the infection away. She goes, just to make sure you're healthy. It's got vitamins and things in it. And then we see the same kid being carted off, or held by Joel and thrown into the burning pile. And it's just wonderful world building we're getting here. Like it's really well done how they're doing this, which very depressing, but still very well done. Next, we meet Tess, played by Fringe's Anna Torv, who's getting the tar beat out of her by two goons in a dark room. From their conversation, it sounds like their deal for a truck battery went sideways. But before we get too deep into the specifics, there's an explosion that takes one of the walls out of the room they're in. When Tess gets back to her feet, one of the guys keeping her captive is dead. The blast came from a bomb placed in a Jeep nearby, which has Fedra soldiers running to the scene. She says, I am not a firefly, she yells multiple times, hands up a surrender as some of them tackle and handcuff her. While that's going on, Joel is worrying about Tommy. He hasn't heard from his brother in 3 weeks, which is alarming because it normally takes him no longer than a day to respond. He gets intel that Tommy likely is in Wyoming, which is smack in the middle of a lot of really bad stuff, infected, raiders, slavers, and the like. So this is the one thing I did not really like that they did, but I understand why they did it. So in the game, we don't hear anything else about Tommy. Like, we just pretty much forget he's a thing until about halfway through. And it's a big shocker. It's a big moment scene. Oh, he just got saved. Oh my God, it's his brother, you know. But in the show, we're clearly still in touch with Tommy, and we're going to go find him. That's what the whole plan is. Which I think down the road it's going to be good. But for right now, I'm like, you know, I'm not too hot on that decision. But again, everything else is great.
I wish that they had addressed what for me was kind of an elephant in the room on the night, you know, when Sarah dies. Because if not for Tommy getting into a bar fight, Joel's probably able to get Sarah out of there sooner.
Mm-hmm.
And she's still alive. And I feel like as much as he cared about her, he would have held a little bit of a grudge against Tommy.
Well, I think we get that. Okay. Because they haven't seen each other in like 2 years or something like that, but they're still keeping in contact with each other. So I bet we get that. Because I think in the game, they have an argument scene where they're still talking about it. But so I'm curious to see how they play it that way. But I'm pretty sure that's a big argument in the game, that whole thing. Back at his apartment, which definitely looks like it survived the apocalypse, but just barely, Joel has a drink of 4, takes some pills and falls into bed where he sees he's still wearing the watch that Sarah fixed, although now it is broken, truly. At some point, Tess comes home, crawls into bed, and they fall back asleep. When he wakes up, she's cooking. He's not happy that she's hurt, that she's been in federal lockup all day, and he's real mad that he hears that the guy they were trying to buy a battery from sold it to someone else. The battery is necessary for their transportation to go find Tommy, he reminds her, but she tells him to calm down and they'll figure out another way. Which, this was a big part of the opening of the game. Robert is this guy's name, and that's how you get introduced to a lot of the shooting and the sneaking around, of course. He's got a bigger role in the game, but still a cool tie-in way to tie it into the show. Elsewhere at the local Fireflies Haven, a teen girl we see is chained up in a room. Her name is Ellie, which of course from HBO people you know of Game of Thrones, Bella Ramsey, and her presence is the reason that every Firefly in the Boston QZ is going to leave permanently that night. They're led by a woman named Marlene, who's played by Merle Dandridge, who is actually the voice actor of Merle in the game. Nice, beautiful touch here. And they're planning to take the girl west. When Marlene visits Ellie, we find out that Ellie was placed in a federal military school when she was a child. Marlene informs Ellie that she was behind that decision. She says, you have a greater purpose than any of us could ever have imagined. So we're leaving tonight and we're taking you with us. And then she shares some important intel with the girl, but we don't hear that yet. Joel and Tess make their way outside the QZ to take back their battery. On the way, they come across a dead man whose infection has regressed to the point where he's essentially glued to the wall by the fungus. Gross, yet cool. Turns out the guy who screwed them over about the battery also screwed over Marlene and the Fireflies, and there's been a huge shootout that killed a bunch of people and wounding Marlene in the process. Still, she's able to pull a gun on Joel when he pulls one on Ellie. There's some bad blood between Joel and Marlene. He accuses her and the Fireflies of turning Tommy against him. But Marlene needs Joel to get over that and quickly because they've got something to sort out before Fedra shows up. There's a team of Fireflies waiting at the State House, and she doesn't have the manpower or transportation to get there. She says, what I do have is you, and I know what you're capable of for better or for worse, she tells Tess and Joel. To Ellie's, because Ellie says, what are they capable of, which is a valid question. Marlene offers a deal. Tess and Joel get Ellie to the State House. They'll get the transportation they need. After some discussion, Joel and Tess agree. They stop by the apartment where Ellie quickly cracks the code that Joel and his compatriots have used to send messages via songs on the radio. In short, 80s music means trouble. She also manages to tick off a very gruff Joel approximately 500 times in the space of a few minutes. And things are relatively chill until they get caught near the wall by the same guard, Joel. So while they're in the apartment, this is another scene for scene of Joel and Ellie going back and forth, and some of the things they say are verbatim what happened in the game, which we're going to get this whole show, I know. But it's very, very, very cool. Things are relatively calm until they get caught near the wall by the same guard Joel sold drugs to earlier in the episode. As the soldier tries to scan Ellie to see if she's infected, she loses her mind, grabs her knife, and stabs him. Joel gets between them, has a flashback to the night that Sarah died, and goes absolutely mother-flipping bananas on the guy's face. After Joel has beaten the Fedra dude's face into a paste, Tess notices that Ellie's meter is red, indicating that she is infected. Tess immediately wants to kill the kid, but Ellie protests that she was bitten on the arm 3 weeks ago and has not been turned. She adds that they'll get caught if they don't run soon, and when a dazed Joel comes back to himself a little, he grabs the guard's gun and follows the woman through a hole in the chain link fence. A sign on the fence reads, "Biological containment area, do not proceed." That again, where they're running and you can hear the Fedra soldiers on top of them, another scene for the game. At Joel's empty apartment, we see the radio come on. Depeche Mode's Never Let Me Down is playing, which is of course 80s music, which means bad things are coming. As the episode closes, we watch Tess, Ellie, and Joel make their way into the ruins of downtown Boston. And this is where you can see the scene where they kind of zoom out on the building, a clicker comes in, and which we have not been introduced yet on the show, which it's going to be horrifying. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be this next episode.
We caught a glimpse in the previews.
Yeah. So. And I have to remind myself, there are previews for the next episode at the end of these, as well as a little kind of behind-the-scenes stuff. I have to start watching those. Game of Thrones did it, and I completely forgot. And I should have watched it here, but I forgot. So, yeah. Oh, man. I know we have got a fun show ahead of us, Chris. And I am extremely excited. I was worried about the whole game adaptation, how they're going to do it. I've got full faith, and I can't wait to see what happens next.
Yeah, it's very good. They've got the right people working on this, unlike Halo. And
I still need to watch that at some point in time. I don't know when, but
I've heard you're not missing much.
Yeah.
So.
Well, they're making a season 2, so they got money from somewhere.
They got money to burn, apparently.
Right. To go along with this, The Last of Us delivered a 4.7 million viewers on Sunday night alone, which was HBO's second largest debut in a decade, second only to Hot D with 10 million in a night. Of course, they broke the 10 million views that following Monday. I think that's when they hit 10 million actual views on it, which is just a day later, which I've heard nothing but great things from people who haven't even watched the game or anything. So it's fun watching this with Jamie, who has not played the game or knows nothing about what's happening or what's going to happen. So I'm really excited about that part.
I think I ended up watching it early Tuesday morning.
So,
Monday night too.
You didn't help with these numbers, Chris.
I helped with the weekly number.
Right. I don't think they needed it because we've got numbers, and I'm excited to see what it looks like after tonight's episode, to see if, from the week people had to watch it, they're like, okay, I have to watch this premiere night. Because, of course, those water cooler moments that people want to be a part of. And so, news here before we jump into another fun recap interview of something we watched this week. Cobra Kai is to end with season 6, which comes sooner rather than later this year. They had a little hype trailer thing of all this announcement. The biggest and baddest season, of course, is what they propose. But I'm going to the official All Valley Cobra Kai release. This is from Josh Held, John Hurwitz, and Hayden Schlossberg, of course, the writers and creators of Cobra Kai. When Daniel LaRusso arrived in the valley with his mother in 1984, little did he know that his life was about to be forever changed. The same went for 3 young kids from New Jersey who hadn't yet met each other. Daniel's journey from bullied teen to underdog hero became an indelible part of our childhoods and something that we would always carry with us in our hearts. Reacquainting with the world with the Karate Kid universe has been our humble honor. Making Cobra Kai has allowed us to join the same hallowed dojo once inhabited by the great Robert Mark Kamen, John Alvidson, Jerry Weintraub, and all the amazing original cast members. It has also enabled us to play Sensei, expanding the original storylines and birthing a new generation of underdogs. We've never once taken this opportunity for granted. Our day one goal with Cobra Kai has always been to end on our own terms, leaving the valley in the time and place we've always imagined. So it's with immense pride and thankfulness that we are able to announce that achievement. The upcoming Season 6 will mark the conclusion of Cobra Kai. While this may be a bittersweet day for the fandom, the Miyagi-verse has never been stronger. I've never heard that called before, but I love it. The fandom is the best on the planet, and we hope to be telling Karate Kid stories with you down the line, because as we all know, Cobra Kai never dies. In the meantime, strap in for the biggest season yet of Cobra Kai, and let today be a celebration of all that's to come, as well as all that's still left to be told. We couldn't do it without you. We made it. Strike first, strike hard, no mercy. Oh, perfect show, by the way. So, if you love any of the Karate Kids, you have to watch the show. It's phenomenal, and I cannot wait. And of course, we got some other news on a TV show that we watch and recap and talk about. Invincible Season 2 finally will return later this year, and I put hopefully on here. Because during the little 2-minute stinger segment that they did, which was very well done, if you haven't watched it, make sure you do. That said coming late 2023, and it said sooner or later on there. So I'm like, oh, don't like that little tagline at the end, because usually means later. But it's a big animated show, which does take time to create, especially with how many of these actors are big actors. So it's been since what, 2020? So it's been 3 years.
Has it been 3 years? I thought it was 21.
It might have been 21. Listen, again, the pandemic. When did Invincible come out?
It might have been
March 25th, 2021. You're right. God, I feel like it was a lot longer. Releases this week. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it'll end up being like 2.5 years, which isn't terrible.
Yeah, which makes sense for an animated show, especially of this nature. I think it's one of those things that I've been wanting it so bad that it feels like it's been forever. I guess it really has not been that long. Releases this week, Monday, January 23rd, The Bachelor on ABC. Chris, we are having a watch-a-thon and probably a fantasy draft if you want to come and be a part of that tomorrow night. Thursday, January 26th, Wolfpack on Paramount Plus. Of course, this is the Teen Wolf. They say it's not a spin-off show, but it's a spin-off show. It's in the same universe. That means it's a spin-off, if you ask me. So I've, of course, been trying to catch up, which I am almost done with season 6, which is the last season. So, enough for me, Chris. That's enough for me.
So we're recording, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Oh, thank God.
I just before I go through my spiel, I want to make sure it's.
Oh man!
Don't forget to edit that either.
Yeah. Oh no, because I cut it in 2 different episodes, so it'll be 2 different recordings. So I'll just be able to cut off the end and just throw it right back in together.
There you go.
Whew.
You just did releases this week. I was starting to read your thing. Movies. Have you watched anything else other than our main?
No, this week coming up, I'll watch Ant-Man in preparation for Ant-Man, which I got us good seats this time. So
awesome.
We were one of the first ones to buy the tickets. So
yay! They went up though.
Yeah. What is up with those prices? Like, it's inflation's hitting everywhere, and I was not expecting to have a $15 movie ticket, and I was Because, I'm buying for 3 over here. So, ugh. Okay.
It adds
Anyways,
up.
yeah, it adds up quick.
All right, so our movie review for this week is The Pale Blue Eye. You can't really tell behind me because it's so minimal.
Mm,
But we've got
but it's
that's
there.
Christian Bale's character and Pale Blue Eye underneath it. Trying to be fancy over here with our backgrounds. So I'm going to run through the plot. We are going to talk spoilers in
Yes.
this because it's been out now for a month. Um, as we talked about before the show, once it's been out a week, we're
Yeah.
gonna do
We're
spoilers because
full on in.
if you care that much to see it, you've already watched it.
Right. And we've given you ample time and opportunity to watch it. It's on the title. I mean, it's not like you'd be caught off guard by what we're talking about. So,
Right. Unless we just throw you a curveball.
true.
So the Pale Blue Eye. Here's I'm pulling this from Wikipedia, so there's no one person to give credit to. Um, we'll just say it's a community deal. In 1830, alcoholic retired detective Augustus Landor is asked by the military to investigate the hanging of Cadet Leroy Fry at the United States Military Academy at West Point, New York. Landor is a widower who lives alone since his daughter Matilda ran off a few years previously. After Fry was hanged, his heart was removed from his body. In the morgue examining the corpse, Landor finds a small fragment of a note clutched tightly in Fry's hand. Also, marks on Fry's neck and fingers suggest he did not hang himself, but was murdered. With the officer's permission, Landor enlists the help of Edgar Allan Poe, another cadet at the academy who has expressed an interest in the case. Poe and Landor deduce from the writing on the note fragment that it was summoning Fry to a secret meeting. After a cow and a sheep are found in the area butchered and with their hearts removed, it's deduced the murder could be linked to black magic rituals. Another cadet, Ballinger, goes missing and is later found hanged with both his heart and his genitals removed. A third cadet, Stoddard, who was a colleague of the 2 victims, then disappears, and it's presumed by Landor that this man had reason to believe he was next in line to be killed. Landor and Poe begin to suspect the family of Dr. Daniel Marquis, who was first brought into the investigation to perform the autopsy on Fry. Particular suspicion is placed on his son Artemis and his daughter Leah, who suffers from random seizures. While visiting Dr. Marquis' house, Landor finds an old officer's uniform. A man impersonating an officer had been involved in the mutilation of Fry's body. Landor confronts Dr. Marquis, who admits he had resorted to black magic to cure Leah of her seizures, and initially she appeared to improve. Poe is enchanted by Leah and volunteers to do whatever she wants. However, he's drugged and wakes to find Artemis and Leah are about to cut out his heart, in accordance with the ritual to cure Leah. Landor manages to arrive in time to rescue Poe, but the building catches fire and Leah and Artemis die. Thinking that the case is now solved, the military thanks Landor for his service. However, Poe, recovering from his near-death experience, notices that the handwriting on the note fragment found in Fry's hand matches that of Landor. Threading together all the information that he's gathered, it becomes apparent Landor was in fact the killer of the cadets. Poe confronts Landor with his conclusion. It transpires that 2 years previously, Landor's daughter Matilda was raped by Fry, Ballinger, and Stoddard after attending her first ball. Traumatized by the experience, she later killed herself by jumping off a cliff. Landor did not disclose this to anyone but pretended she had run away. Distraught, Landor set out to avenge his daughter. He left the note for Fry, luring him to a lonely spot before hanging him. However, a patrol happened to walk by, so Landor was forced to leave the body there. Leah and Artemis stole the heart for their ritual. After killing Ballinger, Landor mutilated his corpse to make it appear the cadet had been murdered by the same madman who had desecrated Fry's body. Poe tells Landor he has 2 notes with handwriting samples that can link Landor directly to the murders, but before leaving, Poe burns them. Landor is later seen standing at the cliff where his daughter leapt to her death. He lets her hair ribbon float away in the wind, saying, "Rest, my love."
Then he killed himself.
I don't know that he did.
Yeah, I think it's left for up for interpretation. Like, so because he did the same thing she did. Like, he put her arms out, and that's when he let go of the ribbon, and then it fades to black after you see the ribbon flying away. So I'm like, I really don't know. But man, What a twist that was.
Yeah.
Because you think everything's fine and done, and then you come back to his house, and he goes in. No, no. He goes, "You did this." He goes, "This is what I suspect." And Landor was like, "Yeah." He goes, "You're absolutely right." And he told him why. And I thought that was very, very well done. I said before we started recording, I was talking to you about it. I love when you have these twist endings to these murder mystery whodunit. And Jamie pointed out after we found out that Landor did it, that Stoddard, that the only one that lived, was very throughout the whole movie. After the first death, he was very cautious and very wiry looking, and that's because he knows why they're getting murdered, and which is just wonderful. I thought that was so well done.
He knows the person questioning him
Mm-hmm.
is the one that's
Yeah.
doing it. Like, what are you gonna do? Like
Right.
he knows deep down he deserves it.
Well, see, it's like all they did a very good. The creators and writers did a very very good job with this. Like, because the second murder was they made note, it was like it was done by somebody else, carving the heart out. But they also mentioned he got castrated as well. Yeah, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, that's just something different, something new or whatever. But you find out why his genitals were cut off at the end of this, and it was just happenstance that someone needed a heart, and that's how Landor got put in. And like they even went back to the very opening scene where he was at the creek side. I was like, this is very well done. And man, Christian Bale's and Harry Melling's acting, which of course Harry, I only know him from the Harry Potter shows. He's the cousin that's been in every movie, and he is a phenomenal actor. Like he did such a fun and very well job. Very very dark ending to the siblings getting crushed by the awnings of the ice house, but man, this was a good movie. I gave this a 4.5 stars. Like so far, this is my favorite movie of the year. I mean, I know it's January 22nd, but this is my favorite movie of the year so far.
Came in at 4.5 as well.
Awesome.
And Melling, to me, somebody needs to lock him up contractually for an Edgar Allan Poe
Yes.
film. Like we need to see him play Poe in a biopic.
Yeah, like he looks just like from the pictures and things you see of Edgar Allan Poe. Like he is I mean, on top of being a great actor, looks just like him, which is very concerning. But and this is not a Edgar Allan Poe story like you would think, but I thought this was very well done how they made it a Edgar Allan Poe story. So I thought that was very well done how they did this.
Yeah, you can sit like he even at one point invites Leah to the cemetery
Mm-hmm.
as a first date, and she's kind of
She was taken aback by that.
yeah, it's different, right? So she's intrigued and she goes with him, and uh, so you get these little hints of what makes Poe
Mm-hmm.
unique and what makes him different, and
His
then
mother still haunting him and talking to him at night and things like that.
yeah.
It's so good.
Also, Toby Jones is in this as
Mm-hmm.
Doctor Marquis. He's always fun to watch and stuff, and good performance. Lucy Boynton plays
Mm-hmm.
Leah. The scene where she has the seizure and her jaws clenching and her teeth
They
are
did very well on that. Like I immediately knew it was a seizure. They did really good with that.
she played that very well.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Interestingly enough, her mother in this, played by Gillian Anderson, who um, most notable to I think a lot of people for her role as Dana Scully on the X Files,
Hmm.
uh, but also in a number of other great films and shows. So it was fun to see her back in something
Oh, good. She
like
was in
this.
217 episodes of the X Files. Good
Yeah,
lord.
yeah.
Good for her.
Um, but Robert Duvall is Jean Pepe,
Mm-hmm.
who
We
very
barely see him.
yeah, but a very
So
interesting character.
yeah.
I mean, he probably did all his stuff in one day and
Mm-hmm.
got out of it. But
He
I
had tattoo, like he had scars and tattoo markings from like the occult on his hands and everything. Very well done. Like very well done.
I wouldn't mind, and this is based on a book, and I haven't looked into it, so I don't know if there's more books in the series. I wouldn't mind seeing another story
Oh,
with
me
some.
either. I need to look that up. Uh,
Um,
Based on the
but
book by Louis Bayard.
I'm trying to think offhand if there was anyone else. I'm looking down through the cast list, see if there's anybody else. That's interesting. John Fetterman played a man in the tavern. He was uncredited. He, of course,
Oh,
is now a U.S. senator
yeah. Wow,
from
that's
Pennsylvania.
interesting. I wonder how
He's,
that came about.
oh, I don't know, but he's the one that he beat Dr. Oz in that
Mm-hmm.
election. Um,
As he should have.
thankfully,
Yeah.
all
Timothy Spall. So yeah, two Harry Potter alumni in here.
these reality people now thinking that they can go
Mm-hmm.
politicians. Um, okay, this is an interesting bit of trivia. The movie title comes from the following: one of his eyes resembled that of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man, and thus rid myself of the eye forever. From Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart.
Mm-hmm. Dude, I love his work. He's one of my favorite authors.
Yeah,
Because, I mean, his story, like, through school, you always read it. People did not want to read, of course, anything in school. But just very, like, his mind was so twisted, and he lived a very, very sad life. But, uh, very great poet, writer, and, oh, man.
my issue with reading in school was they never wanted to read what I wanted to read
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, sounds about right.
here's another interesting thing that I- I'm not 100% familiar with everything Poe wrote. I'm familiar with the big stuff.
Right.
Um, in the film, Edgar promises to honor Landor by including him in a future story. Poe's final short story is entitled Landor's Cottage.
Mm. I did not.
So that
I've got a book. Well, I've got like it's like one of those giant things you get from Barnes and Noble of like everything. It's
I've got
either
one.
it's either up there or it's in Zoe's room because Zoe was reading through it because she was introduced like a year or two ago to Edgar Allan Poe, and now I want to read that just to see the comparisons. That's pretty cool though.
It does mention Poe actually did attend West Point for a while around
Mm-hmm.
1830. He had already seen the first of his poetry published, and so that ties in with what happens in the film. He's getting, I think it's at the dinner party, right?
Yeah.
Where they mention that a he's a published poet.
Right. Well, they even asked him to in the little secret meeting they were doing past curfew with the rapists and the boys and everything. They said, "Oh, just give us a good poem real quick," and it was a very funny one they gave him. But oh, I love this movie. This is a great movie. It's one I would love to own, but Netflix. So
Right. If I remember correctly, too, right? The poem that he makes up, isn't it about taking advantage of a young lady?
mhm.
So it's odd that he doesn't know the story yet,
Right,
but he makes up that poem and he's among
the
people.
three that did it, and like it's great. Like they nodded the stuff like that the whole time. Like they um like the great great grandfather that had the occult book that Leah got. Like
Mhm.
him being in the background, like you don't even see his face, but you see his shirt and the symbol, and then that ties back into what we saw earlier. It's just some of that stuff is really well done. I love when they give little hints like that. This would have been a 5-star movie for me. It was just a little bit of a slow burn at the beginning, but then once they got going and got going,
Yeah, it was. It was one of those that just sort of they but you don't have to wait long.
mm
They lay the foundation really well. It's always interesting to me too to see how they uh so Bale, when we first see him, he's down by that creek,
mm-hmm.
and he's summoned back to his cottage by it's not the admiral, but I can't remember what rank he holds. But he's come to get him about the case, and you can just like Bale's hair.
Mm-hmm.
You see him from behind, you're like he probably hasn't. like washed his hair in a while because it
Yeah.
just looks matted and everything, and that's what it would have been back then because
Right.
they couldn't, especially in wintertime. I mean, you'd have to bring in that ice cold water and heat it up.
And I ain't putting that through my head.
But they're so it's good to see when productions are um, so aware of the details like that.
Hmm.
It just makes it more enjoyable to watch.
Right. That's what I like
So,
about it.
so we're both 4.5 stars on this right now. This is yeah, I can see this ending the year in my top five.
Hmm.
It's going to be tough to beat.
I think so, but and it's exciting because we talked about beforehand. We're going to start doing try and watch some of these Oscar nominated movies for
Right.
film of the year and stuff like that, which I'm really excited about. I don't know why we have not thought about doing that in the past, but
Mm,
I'm really excited to do this. So,
which
and
brings us
yeah.
to the announcement for next week. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, which is a multiverse movie,
Hmm.
basically.
I've heard a
Uh,
lot of good things about.
Not Marvel, but it is a multiverse. It's also expeced to be nominated for Best Picture, and that's kind of what you were just alluding to. The nominations hit Tuesday. We're
Hmm.
recording this on Sunday. So by the time we have to pick the next movie, we'll have the nominees and we'll be able to. I'll probably rewatch Elvis. It's not going to take a lot for me to
No,
rewatch.
that's not going to. No, just mention it to me. I'm going to watch it.
So it'll be fun. We'll take our show whenever our last show before the awards. We can go over who we think will win the
Hmm.
major categories. So that'll be fun.
Be exciting.
So that's part of our 100th episode is the Everything Everywhere All at Once review.
Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting that that's next week. So exciting. Mm.
All right, notable news. The Thunderbolts start shooting in June, according to Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
I would read the first bit, and there's an ad, and then the spoiler stuff, because that's where it really gets into the. This is just the whole story, because it gets into some good stuff here.
Just read the whole story.
Yeah, just read the whole thing.
This comes from Variety.com with a byline to Matt Donnelly titled Julia Louis-Dreyfus will shoot Marvel's Thunderbolts in June and demands to kick ass. I really want to fight.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Julia Louis-Dreyfus's reign over the Marvel Cinematic Universe has only just begun. In her new Variety cover story, the award-winning comic force behind Veep discussed her immersion into the billion-dollar comic book world and how far she's willing to go in bringing the mysterious Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine to life. Louis-Dreyfus was briefly introduced in credit scenes and cameos over multiple Marvel films and series so far, including her debut in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, followed by Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow.
Which should have been
No,
flip flopped, but
right,
COVID.
right, and enough of this Falcon and Winter Soldier stuff. We all know that it's Sam and Bucky.
Yes.
Known casually as Val, the Contessa is a powerful woman with ominous motives who typically shows up in the aftermath of the international incidents kicked up by Earth's mightiest. When she does, she has a knack for recruiting the most broken and vengeful among them into her service. Warning, spoilers ahead for Black Panther Wakanda Forever. The Contessa last appeared in the 2022 blockbuster Black Panther Wakanda Forever, where the audience learns she's been named director of the CIA. This sets the stage for her strongest outing to date, the upcoming film Thunderbolts, which Louis-Dreyfus told Variety will film this June. The plot's been described by Marvel Chief Creative Officer Kevin Feige as the tale of a ragtag bunch of unincorporated superheroes, including Florence Pugh's Yelena Belova and Sebastian Stan's Bucky Barnes. Louis-Dreyfus is no longer content with cameos, she said. She wants to crack some skulls.
I love
I,
this.
I actually pitched it, Louis-Dreyfus said. I told them I really, really want to fight. We'll see if it happens. I haven't seen the script yet. When reminded about Marvel's intense stunt training, she reluctantly agreed. I better get in shape. Others hitting the gym for Thunderbolts included Wyatt Russell returning as the character U.S. Agent, David Harbour reprising his Black Widow role of Red Guardian, Olga Kurilenko as Taskmaster, and Hannah John Kamen as Ghost. they'll all be answering to Louis Dreyfus. Top Marvel production executive Nate Moore teased last summer as her character will emerge as the MCU's most formidable behind-the-scenes leader since Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury. There's so much secrecy around it, Louis Dreyfus told Variety of the gig. When I first started shooting it, I had to go to set wearing a black cloak with a hood and keep my head down so nobody could see it was me walking onto the soundstage. She also confirmed Black Panther director Ryan Coogler's recent revelation that the Contessa's significant role in Wakanda Forever was scaled back to accommodate more storylines surrounding the death of King T'Challa, played by the late Chadwick Boseman. Her storyline will be further unpacked in Thunderbolts and beyond. While we wait to learn more about the Contessa, Louis Dreyfus has been finding ways to make the character her own. In the original comic, she has sort of a white streak in her hair, but I thought purple would make it a little more of this world today, the actor said of the neon streak that Contessa rocks in her hair. And I didn't want her to look too much like Cruella or anything like that. Thunderbolts is currently slated to open July 26th, 2024.
Good for her. Like she, like that makes me really happy because again, we've talked about this, in episodes before, but these actors wanting to be in this universe, and she's like, no, I'm making this character my own, and she goes, this is what I want to do with it. She goes, I just don't want to be someone in the background, and that makes me so excited for the movie because she's obviously a big part of it. So, look, I really enjoyed her wanting to be a piece of it.
Too, that we're seeing Ghost again. Finally, it's been
finally Ant-Man 2.
Mm-hmm. Next bit of news: Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Once and Always 30th anniversary special premieres on Netflix on April 19th.
With original people coming back.
Now, from what I remember hearing, Amy Jo Johnson not back.
I don't think so. So
yeah, so they got most of them.
Right. Anyway. Well, and Tommy's dead too, so he killed himself a couple months ago. So
yeah,
unfortunately,
I didn't know how long ago they had filmed. I didn't know if he might have.
That's what everyone's concerned about. I'm not sure. I didn't delve too much into it, but people are wondering if they're going to do reshoots and things like that for it. But I mean, it still comes out in 3 months, so don't really know.
Releases this week: Teen Wolf the movie on Paramount Plus, January 26th.
Which is weird, dropping the show and this movie the same exact day. I don't really understand that, but...
So this is a remake.
So they had 6 seasons on MTV, and then this is the movie, I think it's like 10 years after the series.
Yeah. Because when I see Teen Wolf, I think of the Michael J. Fox movie.
Never watched it.
That is the reason that this exists.
Mm-hmm. So I need to watch it. I just never did. Because during the first 2 seasons of Teen Wolf, they pay homage to it a little bit. Because Derek Hale, who's played by Tyler Hoechlin, who is our Superman now, played basketball back when he was early doing it. And they made so homages to that. So
yeah. Teen Wolf is Michael J. Fox. Teen Wolf 2 was Jason Bateman.
I need to watch both of those. I think I would enjoy both of them.
Yeah. And now on to games, Tyler.
Chris, you been playing anything this week?
I've been very boring this week. I haven't,
You're going to sleep too early, man.
That's outside of my normal stuff.
That's all. I've been playing Final Fantasy VII and then Destiny, obviously. Almost. I was this close to buying NBA 2K23.
Yeah.
So close. But it's $70 for the Xbox version, the Series X version. I'm just I can't drop that right now.
No, that's insane.
Yeah, because all the other your NFL, the Madden, and baseball are all $20 right now. They're on sale, so I'm like, that's what I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna play that finally. And then it's still at $70. I was like, no, you know what? I'm good. We're almost halfway through this season. I'm good. There's no need for it to be $70.
Yeah.
So, only got one gaming news here to talk about, and it's Marvel's Avengers going to be shut down. We talked about this in text. I was like, I'm just surprised it wasn't sooner because story was good on it. Everything post game terrible. We're going to DualShockers.com, and this is by Jose Garcia. In a recent report by Exputer, the publication claimed that according to their sources, ongoing development for the live service title Marvel's Avengers will be shutting down soon over at studio Crystal Dynamics. It had been previously reported this was going to happen sometime in 2023, but Exputer is now claiming that this shutdown could occur as early as next week. So this was the story that broke, was this from Exputer, but then Crystal Dynamics came back, I think this was the next day, and said, Crystal Dynamics has now confirmed that Marvel's Avengers will no longer receive new content following the game's 2.8 update on March 31st, 2023. Cosmetic purchases will be turned off that day as well. Official support will end on September 30th, 2023. Credits will become in-game resources, see conversion here. So, supposedly, the team had been planning to support the game with new content updates up until late 2023. However, the title's lead developer Brian Wagner allegedly left the studio after being stripped of his spokesperson privileges publicly by the official Crystal Dynamics Twitter account. Exputer claims that his position will not be replaced, and the team still working on Marvel's Avengers is increasingly small, and that most devs in the small team are also working on the studio's other projects. So, I mean, writing was on the wall, though. I just didn't know why. I thought it would be sooner, truthfully. But
yeah,
September 2023. So if you're playing it, I mean, your last update comes in March. So
I heard something too. It just popped back in my head this week about Bethesda and Xbox layoffs.
Oh yeah, that was a big. So Microsoft laid off, I think, 10,000 people in their Xbox studios and things like that. There was another company that laid off a bunch of people this week too. But we've got a big Xbox and Bethesda showcase this week on Wednesday. So like this, it's a rough time to try and be doing a showcase for the year to come when you're laying off a lot of employees. 343 Studios, same thing. They laid off a lot of people. Which of course, with the, I won't say failure of Halo Infinite, but the disappointing Halo Infinite. That's sad to see. A lot of people thought that, or saying that, okay, so good, 343 is not going to be doing Halo anymore. But they had a random tweet this most recent, I think it was like Friday, because all this news broke and everything. Let me see if I can find this tweet. Because it was very, very weird. So they had the layoffs, you know. And then they had, all right, let me go to 343 Studios, which of course they just don't have their own account, which is dumb. Latest, I'm trying to find the exact tweet. I think it's under Halo, maybe. Sorry, I should have had this prepped. It completely slipped my mind. Yep, so yesterday they did, which is on a Saturday. This is from Pierre Hensey. Halo and Master Chief are here to stay. 343 Industries will continue to develop Halo and now and in the future, including epic stories, multiplayer, and more of what makes Halo great. That was it. 2 sentences. Had all these layoffs off, being reports are coming out that you're no longer doing Halo, and you make a 2-sentence statement on a Saturday. If that doesn't show what Halo Infinite was, I don't know what does. Notable new releases coming out this week: Forspoken for PC and PS5, January 24th. Risen, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, January 24th. World War Z gets its next-gen update, January 24th. Hitman World of Assassination on everything, January 26th. Hitman 3 Freelancer Mode, everything, January 26th. The new PS5 DualSense Edge controller comes out for January 26th. And then the Dead Space remake for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and PC, January 27th. Not playing it. Don't do horror. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for listening and watching. I really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Nerdwide Podcast. Had a fun episode talking The Last of Us Episode 1 and The Pale Blue Eye. Don't forget, next week is our big 100th episode, so make sure you tune in for some fun down memory lane, for some surprises potentially, and where we're going for our next 100 episodes. Social media, you can follow us on Nerdwide on the Twitter at nerd_wide. You can follow me personally at Ty_Haynes. You can follow Chris at MavTN7. Facebook, search nerdwide.com, Nerdwide Podcast, or just Nerdwide. We're the first thing that pops up on every one of those searches. So make sure you're following us there. If you're not subscribed, that's where we show if we miss an episode or anything crazy like that, that's where we post all of it. And so, of course, it's where our episodes post as well if you're not subscribed. As always, this has been this week's episode of the Nerdwide podcast, and we cannot wait to celebrate our 100th episode with you next week. Have a great week, everybody.